I'm actually going to try and tell you a little bit of a story today, if that's okay, because it helps paint a picture of how we ended up, or how I ended up working for this company, and why I think home energy stuff's really, really important. This is a photo of me from 32 years ago, believe it or not. Younger, slimmer, less, no grey hair, all those kinds of things. It was published in a paper, and I started out 32 years ago when there was about 20 solar companies in Australia. Today there's about 7,000. And one of the only places I landed a job up on the north coast of New South Wales, working for a solar company up there, and I got interviewed by the newspaper at one point because we'd just put one of the biggest solar systems in the country on the roof of our factory where we were making stuff. And in fact, it was the first grid-connected three-phase system in Australia at the time. And when we started out, before our system went live, there was zero grid-connected solar. Everything was off-grid. It was the only market there was. The global market was about 50 megawatts a year of solar. Today it's terawatts a year. So it was a tiny, tiny, tiny little industry. And our boardroom was down here. I was the director for the company, and we used to sit down there and go, imagine one day when people can actually put solar on their roof and buy and sell, and and this is a quote actually that I found in the article the other day, that we were literally imagining when this was going to be possible, and here we are 32 years later, and there's 4 million people now who've got solar on their roofs and deal with it, get the benefits from it every day. So there were a lot of lessons that I learned out of that, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about, because over the last 30 years, the most consistent lesson that just keeps coming back to me all the time is visibility is so important. If you can't measure it, you can't control it. If you can't control it, you can't manage it. And so whether it was, dealing with the hippies 32 years ago, or whether it's helping people to try and find ways to save money today, the story is the same. The key to that is visibility. But of course, apart from a select group of nerds, some of whom are at the back of the room, we'll look at our apps all the time and, fiddle around and like to play with things and all of that. But for most people, what they actually want is the ability to see things when they need to. Is my system working? Am I on the best tariff? Is it a good time to buy a battery? All those kinds of things need to be visible to you, but most of the time actually what most people want is, I don't want to have to do anything. I just want this to operate. I want it to be sitting there in the background, and I want to be able to dive in and see what's going on when I need to. To help round out the story for you, and I like telling, this is my motorcycle, and it's an electric Harley Davidson, believe it or not. I'm actually 11 years into electric motorcycle ownership now. This is my third one. And I like to tell the story about this bike because it's very similar to kind of what we do with our technology, because what happens on a motorcycle, when you ride a motorcycle, there's manual inputs, brakes and leaning and cornering and all these things. There's input from the road, there's the instruments telling you various different things. There's obviously on an electric one, and even on most modern ones, there's all this electronic and digital inputs that are going into the systems all over the bike. So there's inputs coming from everywhere, and you put a reckless human on top of all of it, and it's a pretty serious thing. So in a typical electric motorcycle, there's actually more lines of code than a space shuttle, believe it or not. There is so much going on. And to make that a simple experience, I'm no genius, I'm no space shuttle pilot. What I want is a very simple interface that just tells me the stuff that I need to know, allows me to customise things if I want to customise it, and I just want to ride it. And being human, some days I get on it and I want it to behave a certain way, other days I get on it and I want it to behave a completely different way. And so I need a little bit of input and a little bit of customisation to be able to fiddle around with things. And the reason I mention this is not just because it's a very cool electric motorcycle that I can charge off my solar system, of course, and I can automate the charging of it. I can essentially store my solar into it and then use it later on to commute to work. But the reason I tell this story is because it's a beautifully elegant example of how you can make something really complicated very, very simple for a user. And that's ultimately what we try and do. So this is what we do. We do it pretty much entirely with one little widget and some software. So we actually make this widget up in northern New South Wales. Anyone heard of Glen Innes? Yeah, we make these in Glen Innes. Our founders set out, actually their mission originally was to employ people in the local area because there wasn't very much employment around, particularly for technical people or software people. So they started up a little business, and 10 years later, we're now a very significant business and having a good time. And what that widget does is it allows us to measure things, it allows us to control things in the home. So we can switch, for example, I saw all the EV chargers here, we can ramp the EV charger up and down so that when you've got excess solar, we can make sure that excess goes into your car. And if you don't have any excess, turn the charger off, for example. Conversely, if there's a low tariff rate, you can sign up with companies like Amber or Evo Energy and a few others who have very, very low rates, just at different times of the day to allow you to charge your electric vehicle cheaply. You can program that in, and you can say, okay, between midday and 2 p.m, automatically charge my vehicle because the energy is really, really cheap. Don't worry about whether I've got solar or not. We can also now, with our latest model, which just came out a month ago, we now have the ability to talk to air conditioners as well. So we can actually hook into the air conditioner, and again, we can say, okay, got excess solar, no point exporting it at a very, very low rate. That makes no sense. So rather than doing that, connect into the air conditioner and ramp the air conditioner up and down. Use the excess solar energy to drive the air conditioner. And of course, we're talking to inverters and batteries and everything else that needs to be there as well. We can also control hot water systems. That's actually one of the places we started. If you happen to have an electric water tank sitting on the side of the house, and a heat pump is a wonderful addition. But if you're not ready to go to a heat pump, you've got a conventional electric tank, you can use it as a battery. And you can basically store your excess solar into it during the day. Again, the goal being, don't export it at a low rate. That makes no sense. So these are all the things we do, and we can automate that for you. We can give you customization. We can allow you to play with it and do whatever you want to do. So what's the benefit of that? This is an example of the benefit, and we've now got about 60,000 systems out in the market. And one of the great things from that is when we start playing with our device and we start looking at battery control or EV control or any of the other things we can do, we can actually use the data we've got from real sites, and we can synthetically model over a really wide variety of homes and users. We can say, what would it be if we took the data from this house? How would that have behaved, and how much would someone save? And these are the average savings that we get typically. So hot water is a really big one. Anyone with a conventional tank should ideally buy a heat pump because they're just incredibly efficient, but not everyone can do that straight away. So we can automate that, and on average, we'll save you, in addition to what your standard solar system will save, and that can vary depending on the size, of course. But on average, we'll save someone $300 or $400 a year just by putting excess into their tank instead of buying expensive energy. Electric vehicle control's another one. So again, ramping that EV up and down, we can save you more. Battery control's another one by playing on the wholesale market. Have you anyone heard of Amber? Yes, yeah. So Amber allows you to, basically, it's kind of a bit like the stock market. When energy is really, really cheap, you can buy. When it's really expensive, you can dump your battery and you can sell and you can make money. And that's what Amber does. So we're integrated with Amber as well. So by taking control of the loads and your solar system, we can do that buying and selling for you. And there's some really, really good savings to be got out of that. And then Plan Optimizer is the other one. We actually developed that several years ago. In a nutshell, what that does is it looks at your solar system and it says, what tariff plan are you on? And what are all the other tariff plans that are out there? And would you save more by switching to another plan? Now, we don't do switching. There's plenty of switching companies out there who make a profit by doing the switch and get a little clip on the way through. That's not our bag. What our bag is, find ways to show you how much you could save. So what we do with our Plan Optimizer is you can click a button in our app and it will show you exactly how much you could save if you chose to switch. And on average, there is $300 to $400 a year just in making sure you're on the right retail plan. Because what do we know? Retail plans change all the time, feed-in tariffs change all the time, human behaviour changes all the time. So all those variables mean that maybe this year red energy is good for you, maybe next year amber's better for you. So we give you the tools to automatically calculate that. So again, automation, try and make it easy. Use AI and smart learning in the background. So that's our goal, is to help you save more by automating all of those things. I'll quickly run you through a few examples. This is one of my favourite ones, and it's a little bit technical, but the key thing here is, here's our little device. We're measuring all these things and we're controlling a whole bunch of them, and that's just a visualisation of what we can do in a home. We're controlling the solar and battery, and as you know, in Victoria from October 1st, you now need to be signed up to a emergency backstop program, so that if there's a problem with the network, they can turn your solar system off or turn it down temporarily. So we can look after that for you. We can make sure that the solar and the battery, the inverter and the battery are doing exactly what they need to do, and we can control all of that for you. We can also talk to the air conditioner, as I mentioned. We do that via a DRM port into the air conditioner. We've got our hot water system under control. We're measuring a pool pump, or it could be any other load. So that gives you the ability to see, has something changed? In fact, I'll talk about pool pumps just as an example, because a buddy of mine bought a solar system many years ago. He was complaining that it wasn't working properly and he wasn't getting the savings. He checked all the basic things, and he has a pool, and he said, Nigel, I've got to get some information out. I'm blind, back to the image with the glasses, right? He couldn't understand what was going on in the home. Didn't understand why his bill had gone through the roof. And I said, oh, you got a big pool pump down there. I bet you it's the pool pump. He said, no. I've got the pool pump running in the middle of the day when I've got all this excess solar, so it should be good. We put the monitoring on, and as soon as we put the monitoring on, we realised that the pool pump was running at the beginning of the day and the end of the day outside when he was generating energy. So he was buying all his energy to run his pool pump, and he couldn't work out what had happened. And then he got onto the pool maintenance guy, and he said, oh yeah, I changed it for you. Oh. He said, I saw it was running in the middle of the day. It didn't make sense to have it then, so I moved it and set the timer at the beginning and the end of the day. You can thank me later. So he was absolutely blind to that, and it was costing him hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a quarter just because someone made that little change. So that's where that visibility can be so valuable. And I've got story after story after story of how we have helped people identify wasted energy just by being able to see the data. So a whole lot of things we can do, whole lot of things. All of this, of course, and like most things in life today, there's an app for it, right? Got to have a way to interface with it. You might be away somewhere and you want to turn your hot water system off because there's no point buying energy. We can do that for you. There's a whole lot of things you can do. So there's a lot of, I won't bore you with all the details, but all the normal visualizations that you would expect, and you can get data down if you're right into the data. You can look at all the graphs. You can see all the different loads coming off. So there's a whole lot of information built into the app, but where it starts to get really interesting is some of the clever things that we can do with electric vehicles and loads. In this case, it's a little bit boring, but we've got 5 different ways you can control an EV charger, for example. So an example I heard from an owner the other day was, they said, well, look, I'm with OVO, and they've got cheap energy in the middle of the day and the middle of the night. So I want to set a schedule to make the charger turn on at those 2 times of the day. Okay, we'll set up a schedule. In fact, we'll set up 2 schedules for those 2 times of the day. And they said, but at the rest of the time, I just want the excess solar to feed it and to ramp that charger up and down whenever I've got excess. And I just want it all to happen seamlessly. So we said, no worries. In the solar track mode, we'll set up another schedule for you. So we set up 3 different schedules, and they just use their car. They just do whatever they need to do with their car. It's just their electric vehicle. They drive the kids around and everything else. They come home, they plug it into their charger, and the software takes over then and saves them as much as they possibly can. So that's one lovely example of it. Another example of it is batteries. And, you know, there's a lot of batteries going in. They make increasing financial sense, and it's a great way to avoid the almost non-existent feed-in tariffs. You might as well store it in a battery. But there are times when it doesn't make sense to use a battery. For example, with an electric vehicle. If you're charging a Tesla, they can draw a lot of power, right? So you want to be using all that solar, but you probably want to keep your battery energy for later in the evening to get you through the night. So a feature that we've built in is called an exclusion class, and we can actually exclude all sorts of loads from the battery. which becomes really valuable because then you can customise how that battery is working for you. So a typical case is electric vehicles and in fact air conditioners, the bigger ones particularly, they can use a fair bit of power. So maybe the rule is, okay, don't draw battery power to run the air conditioner and don't draw battery power to run the EV, but let it run everything else. So again, finding the best ways to optimise what you're doing in the home. And then a number of other tools that are built into our dashboard as well. This is Plan Optimizer, as I mentioned. So this allows you to click a button and see how much could I save. You can check every time. I looked at one, had someone come through the show yesterday actually, and this came up and it said, you're on the best plan. We can't, you know, saving $300 more than any other plan we could find in the market, and they were eligible for 42 different retail plans, believe it or not. And switching providers is quite easy. Pick up the phone, I want to switch to you, the sales guys will switch you pretty quick. The hard part is comparing the 42 plans. So that's the bit we do for you. We just automatically calculate those plans. So the customer I was talking to yesterday who came through the show, they told a story, we looked at their app and said, no, you're on the best plan. So for them, they could then relax. They could go, okay, I don't need to do anything. I can check again in 6 months or whatever, but they just gave them peace of mind that they are on the right plan for their particular circumstance. So that was a really nice example of how sometimes it won't tell you to switch, sometimes it'll just tell you, good job, you've done the right thing. The other one that that's a really nice option that we've got built in is battery calculator. So not everyone gets a battery straight away. Some people get them down the track a little bit. They might go solar first and think about a battery. And so we've got a calculator built in. And the beautiful thing about both of these is they're using the actual data that we're pulling from your system, because our little device is measuring everything, of course. So we can see what's happening in the home. So you don't have to download your data from somewhere and upload it into a website and do a whole bunch of data entry and work out what's going on. We've got the data, we can just do it with the click of a button for you. So you can literally click the button and say, show me the best plan. Oh, so I beg your pardon, click a button and show me the best option for a battery. And what that will do is calculate how much excess energy you've got available to put into a battery. Okay, so it'll give you a really quick guide to how big a battery could fit on your home. Because we're showing you your savings all the time as well, we calculate the savings that you've made from your solar over time. So now you know, okay, I've saved $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 through my solar system over 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever it may be. I'm ready to make the next step. Is it a good time to buy a battery? What size battery would I need? And that's what we can do with this calculator. The other thing we built into the calculator is, again, some more customization. So you have the ability to use our advanced options if you're right into it, and you can say, well, I'm on this plan today, do the calculation based on that plan. But what if we do a combination? What if we said, what would a battery do for me if I was on a different plan? And so then we can combine these two together and we can go search for the best plan and tell me what a battery would do for me under that scenario. You can choose a couple of different options. You can bias it towards grid independence, or you can bias it towards maximum savings, right? So there are different biases that we built in, again, giving you the ability to tailor it to exactly what you want. This is all just sitting there in the background, and one of the things we're really careful of is we're not bombarding you with emails. We send one a month that gives you an overview of what we think's going on in your system, and everything else is just sitting here waiting for you. Of course, if anything goes wrong, we'll let you know. Our software also has the ability to actually measure the performance of your system, which is actually one of the foundations of our company. Every solar system, every monitoring platform will say, you generated 20 kilowatt hours today. The key is, should it have generated 25 or 27 or 30? That's harder to tell because you don't know what the weather's done. You don't know whether it was a good solar day or a bad solar day, or whether your solar system's behaving normally but it's aged a little bit, for example. So again, using software and 10 years of development, what we do is we collect weather data, we collect satellite data, we age your system, and we predict what it should have generated. So in this case, the yellow bar is what the system produced, and the grey bar is what we think it should have produced. Okay, so that gives you the ability to track solar performance over time. And what the goal of that is sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes a cocky will get up on the roof and chew a cable and you'll lose one string. Or sometimes if you've got a large system, you might have multiple inverters, one of those inverters goes down. It's very hard to tell if you're just looking at what the system spat out to know whether that's correct. So performance monitoring is sitting there in the background the whole time as well. And again, if we think that there's something that you should have a look at or check, it's buried in the background. That's it from me. It's one widget. It goes in the meter board. We can talk to pretty much all the main inverters, all the main batteries. We can take care of all the compliance stuff. We can talk to a growing range of EV chargers, air conditioners, batteries, anything else that you need. And our goal is to try and help you save money and get visibility. That's me.
So what's the catch? What's the cost?
What's the catch? That's exactly right. So there are a few $100s for a meter like this, but every solar system is going to have a meter like this in it anyway. There is a consumption meter that is going to be installed on every solar system, particularly in Victoria. It's mandatory now. So the difference between us and a standard inverter consumption meter, anywhere from about 50 to a couple $100 more to put us in instead. Yeah, so we replace, for example, the SunGrow meter. Instead of putting a SunGrow meter in, you pop one of our meters in, and you get all the same things that the standard consumption meter would do, but you get the ability to do all the control stuff as well and all the software.